All right, guys. How's it going? Welcome back to another episode of Thinking Out Loud. I know I'm a little late on this, but hey, better late than never. So today we're talking about the pretty, I guess you can say, infamous trial of Elizabeth Holmes, who is the former CEO of the tech company or biotech company Theranos. Now, if you're not too familiar with this story, well, let me give you a quick recap. So, Elizabeth Holmes is, um, she started a company called Theranos, and the idea of what this company was supposed to do was supposed to create this invention she had in mind where basically it's supposed to take one drop of blood, and using that one drop of blood it does a myriad of um, a blood test, and it's supposed to and then so to, supposed to do a myriad of blood tests and do it quickly so that you can diagnose certain illnesses if you have them. And if you're not familiar, currently, blood tests they have to take like a few vials. They depending on what you want to do. If you want to do a lipid test, they usually take 2 or 3 vials. If you want to do other types of tests for diabetes or anything other, they usually have to take a good amount of blood. I mean, not so much that like you can't walk afterwards or something like that, but they do have to take a decent amount, or well, at least like a few ounces in order to do the blood test. And usually it takes a while to do blood tests too, unless you have like a rush order. It could be done like in a few hours. So the idea was to fast track all of this. People can do it at home, and if you can detect illnesses early with just one drop, you can treat it earlier, and therefore it's supposed to help people. That was the whole idea. The problem was execution. So she had this huge idea, and people were like, this is amazing, like, where is this technology coming from? So and pretty much in a few years, she was considered the youngest female, or just billionaire in general. Like, she was the youngest billionaire in history at the time. Definitely the youngest female billionaire, but also the youngest billionaire, period. So her company was, supposed to be revolutionary. She was supposed to be the next. She was supposed to be the next Steve Jobs. Like, people were just, talking about her like as if like she was the next coming of Jesus or something like that. And so, but over time, what had happened was, basically, a lot of her stuff never came to fruition, and they got a lot of money. Like, the amount of people that gave her funding was insane, and they didn't give like just like 7 figures here and there or 6 figures. They gave a lot of money, and it included like former heads of state, even Betsy DeVos and their family. Like, they gave money to this to this company as well in order to fund it, right? But over time, basically they didn't produce any real product, and they kept telling investors like, hey, we're coming along, like, we're making it, yeah, it works. They kept telling investors it works, but in reality it didn't. And in fact, even though they made machines that looked like they were gonna do the blood test, they actually were fake, and then they would actually take samples of blood and do it with what current market blood testing machines were. So it was all a lot of bad practices, I guess you can say. And then eventually excuse me, a few employees were like, this is some bull crap. Like, we're working like crazy for this woman. And it was also like, I guess the culture there was just like really crazy. Like, it was just really dicey, and some people were just fed up. So at least 2 people came out and basically were whistleblowers and told, I guess the government was like, hey, like, this person, like, this, what the media is claiming that this found, or this person is doing, is not happening. And in fact, like, they're just lying to people like all the time. Because this girl was on Forbes, she was on Fortune, she was like getting interviewed by so many different outlets of media to be hailed as like one of like the most, I think she was like the Times Person of the Year at one point. So but it was all fake. It was all, like it was, none of it actually worked. So, eventually, a book came out called Bad Blood. If you haven't read it, I highly encourage you to go read it. There's a few documentaries on YouTube. There's one on HBO Max called The Inventor, and so all this stuff came. I don't know what that is. All this stuff came out, and eventually the state of California or the government is like, hey, like, you basically frauded a lot of people, and we're bringing you up on charges. And the last few months, she's been on trial, or the last few weeks, she's been on trial. She even took the stand herself to kind of talk about what went on. And yeah, at the end of the day, it was she was found guilty on 4 of the 11 federal charges. So if you want to read through the article, I have the link down below. But basically, at the end of the day, she is found guilty on 4 counts of defrauding investors, which basically means she told them lies when they gave her money, and then when she couldn't produce, she lied again. And she faces up to 20 years in prison. Now, I'm not exactly sure what the legal precedents in terms of like what she can do move forward. For sure, they can appeal. I know that. But the charges where there's a mistrial, chances are, like, I think, I'm not sure if the prosecutors can appeal those. I think they left it up to the Justice Department to deal with that. And the things that are found not guilty, basically, she can't be tried on. Like, no one can really appeal that. The thing that bothers me the most is like, on one hand, her initial like kind of quest, I guess you can say, or objective of Theranos was all like it was a good thing. She wanted to revolutionize part of the medical world in a very big way. I think, I believe in the documentary, a lot of it was kind of motivated by, I think, like people in her life that, couldn't get early diagnosis for certain diseases. So they, and when they passed away, it hurt her. And I'm like, hey, I get it. And that sucks. And then, so she wants to make a company or wants to have a device that can prevent that. Right. And I'm like, so that's a very, very good thing to have. Just none of it came to fruition. And then, I think that's where the problem is. It's like, okay, like basically she didn't have a product and kept telling investors that it was real and that it was working, but in reality it wasn't. So, I think that's where a lot of like corporate responsibility and all that jazz comes into play. It's like, hey, why didn't you just tell people like, hey, like we need more time? Like you could have been truthful with them, or were you afraid of, people backing out or wanting their money back, like, or being sued, like there's a lot of things that could have happened. Right. And I would say the one thing that really annoys me is like, they say like, oh, this is the Silicon Valley, you fake it till you make it mentality, which I don't know, like that I think that's a BS like thing. I mean, I'm not saying like a lot of tech companies don't follow that, but I feel like when we look at like some of the biggest tech companies, I don't think that's true. Like if you look at the FANGs, or the FANG top 5, which is Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google, like they're not a fake it till you make it type of company. Like I don't think that falls in the category in them, because they provided exactly what they provided, what they set to do. Facebook, granted, between Facebook and like companies like Facebook, Twitter, even Amazon, like they weren't profitable for a long time, or they weren't even making money, right? But they had a product that like their overall product was working, or like it was provided to the people. Facebook is a social network. They only started making money when they started back in like 2009, 2010-ish, when they actually, or 2011, maybe more like 2011, when they actually started selling advertising. That's when they started making money instead of just getting random like seed money seeds and stuff like that. So, but like they didn't. I don't think they would fall into the category of faking it till you make it. Apple, they were just selling computers from the beginning. Granted, they do have a lot of situations. I've heard like a lot of the product releases are using products that just don't work. I heard like the first iPod didn't actually work. The first iPhone didn't actually work. Like they had to like fake a lot of the product presentations, and then they would, before it was actually released, they would go back and actually make a phone that actually worked, update the software or whatever. But I don't think that really falls into the category because, they sure, like the product announcement wasn't exactly super truthful, but it wasn't like, they kept delaying the iPhone like for like 4 years or 4 or 5 years, and then kept telling people, hey, it's coming, it's working. And eventually came out with a product that didn't actually work, or like, just basically gave no one a phone. They eventually did come out with something. And they still have tons of good products till today. So it's kind of like, I feel like they don't really fall into that category. Netflix, how do they fall into it? Google, they were just a search engine in the beginning. Like, it's not like you went on Google back in, the late 90s, early 2000s, and like if you Googled something, you couldn't find anything. It still worked as a search engine, just wasn't as good as it is today, but it still worked, right? Like it's not a fake it till you make it type of situation. But obviously there are a lot of tech companies out there that, are in startups that do, unfortunately follow this type of model where there's like, oh, I promise you X, but it's going to take like 5 years to do. And then we're going to keep telling you like little, try to buy at our time, and then eventually come out with a product that's like lackluster. And here you go. Like there is a lot of that goes on, but I don't feel like like painting the overall, I think, kind of tech world as that, I think it's a little unfair. But that's just me. Maybe it's because I work in tech, so it's like I'm a little biased. But that's just me. So, but anyways, overall, like, I mean, I think this whole situation just, man, it's kind of like, not that I give her a pass, because it's not like in terms of like, okay, she had altruistic motives, but then didn't deliver. But I don't understand like why she lied. And also like there's a lot of criticism on just the way like her as a person. Like apparently, like in all the interviews, she has like a really deep voice. Apparently that's not her real voice. Like a lot of people are saying when they, watch these, interviews, are like, whoa, why is her voice so deep? Like she's like, people are basically saying she's doing this on purpose. She wore a black turtleneck just like Steve Jobs, because she emulated him. But it was, so like it's all these like kind of unnatural type of tendencies or like kind of mannerisms that she would pick up that really creep people out. And and even today, like I get a little weirded out, like watching clips of her talking. I'm just like, whoa, like, what is the, like, why is she talking like that? It's a little, it's unnerving. So it's like a real bummer that like, things didn't work out. Because, I mean, I think if it did, like if they actually could do something like this where take one drop of blood and start diagnosing people for like be able to diagnose certain diseases and like illnesses, dude, it'd be revolutionary. Like, I have some health issues and I hate getting my blood drawn, and if like one little droplet could have done it when I'm like doing it just at home, like, dude, it would make my life so much easier because I wouldn't have to go to like a clinic, sit and wait and then sit in this armchair. They strap on like the rubber band on you, make you feel like a crack or like a meth addict, and friggin' do all that craziness. Like, not that I know what that is like, but it's just like, the whole process would have been streamlined, and it would have basically completely revamp the whole laboratory, blood work of hospitals and the medical world. So, anyways, I believe what's next is sentencing. So what will be next for Elizabeth Holmes is that she will be, she could face up to 20 years in prison plus a fine of 250K plus restitution for each count. So she's going to end up owing a lot of money, and she will be doing it from a prison cell. Or owing it from a prison cell, which I'm guessing in this case will be from a white collar prison, which is basically Club Med. I mean, from what I understand, white collar prisons are like super low security. They're for people who do white collar crimes, but they're not like a danger. They're not like, there's no fear of like stabbing people or like, that type of, it's not that type of place, So, it sucks, and there's a lot about this that I feel like it could have went another way if she was just a little bit more honest. I know she does blame a lot of it on Sunny Balwani, who was the COO and her boyfriend at the time. But there's some disturbing stuff about him too, like him being a controlling and like a rapist, basically raping her or like controlling her, what she ate, how she talked, when she can sleep, how long she slept. Like apparently there's like written documentation about that, and I'm just like, whoa, that dude is crazy. But he's also coming up with his own trial in the next, I think, 6 months or something like that. So we'll see what happens to him, because basically Elizabeth Holmes revealed that he was like sociopath. Though arguably she's kind of one too herself. So anyways, that's just kind of the update / my take on this. I'm not a lawyer or anything, so I don't really know what like the legal stuff is. I just think it's really interesting because I didn't even know about this until like 2 years ago when I saw the documentary, and I'm like, oh crap, like this was happening in my backyard and I had no clue. So shows where I was. But anyways, let me know what you guys think of this whole Elizabeth Holmes Theranos trial in the comments, and